Good evening, everybody. Tonight, I'd like to share with you a little bit about who I am and why. I am a proud and passionate mother of two incredible adult women who are sitting right there tonight. That in itself is pretty impressive. I'm 46 and I've been very fortunate to spend much of my childhood here growing up on Magic Bundjalung country. Much of my childhood and adolescence was spent in the Northern Rivers. But my journey with my vagina really kicked off sexually when I was 13 years old. You see, there was a girl who used to sit under the art block and read books every day during lunchtime. And one hot day, I decided to see what she was reading. We were both in Year 7 at high school, Nimbin Central School, and I remember that day vividly. I remember the smell of the damp, musty air, the feeling of being protected by the heat, sitting under the building, my new friend and I, talking about books, what we loved and what we liked to read. And I'm not sure how one interesting conversation led to another that day, but she turned to me and she said, "Do you know what an orgasm is?" And I was like, "Yeah, I got a bit of an idea." And she said, "Well, have you had one?" I was like, "No." And she said, "Do you know what your clitoris is?" I was like, "No." She said, "Well, it's this thing and it's shaped like a pea and it sits at the top of your vagina and if you touch it, it feels really, really good." I was fascinated. I said, "How do you know all this stuff?" And she said, "I read books." So that night, I was pretty enthusiastic about bedtime. I went to bed really, really early and I proceeded to go about following my friend's instructions. First, I found this mysterious thing called a clitoris. And then as I began to relax, I could feel tingles, electrifying tingles starting to rise and circulate. And I felt like I was lifting up off the ground. And I was climbing higher and higher. And in my mind, I'm climbing this huge purple mountain. And it's flanked by soft, fluffy white clouds. And the higher I go, the more excited I get, until eventually I get to the top. And I have the first orgasm of my life, and it was fucking amazing. So this experience has had an influence on the work that I do today. Today I educate young women to be powerful, to know how to be comfortable with their own bodies before they start complicating things and adding a whole other being. I teach young women how you do not need to hook up or be in a relationship with someone to experience sex or love. Having sex with yourself and loving yourself is actually very, very smart, takes courage, and is contentiously often far more rewarding. I point out to teenage girls that masturbation is not weird, it's not shameful, you're not going to get pregnant, you don't have to worry about STDs. It's a brilliant tool for PMS, insomnia, stress, and you won't get your heart broken. A healthy foundation with your own vulva has proven to be effective in reducing unhealthy relationships, date rape, and even teenage pregnancy. And even though they won't admit it, just about everyone masturbates. And so they bloody well should. It's awesome. So I'd like a little show of hands. Who's a masturbator? Come on. Yeah. That's what I like to see. So I work as a therapist, counselling and educating. And about 15 years ago, I felt this massive calling after working in the healthcare system, supporting lots of different kinds of people, and I wanted to specifically educate and empower young women. I wanted to change the system. For me, for my girls, for all the girls that I possibly could, I wanted to empower and educate young women who were living with trauma. I developed a holistic counselling program for young women at risk called the Chrysalis Girls Program. Chrysalis has seen over 1,000 girls walk through its doors in high schools across the Northern Rivers for over a decade. It's a place where teenage girls can come and be completely unapologetically themselves. They can be emotionally honest. They can cry. They can do art therapy, martial arts, yoga, adventure therapy, meditation, and importantly, be able to lean into the other arms of women that have also experienced trauma. So we create a community. I also teach young women about anger and grief, their fertility, contraception, addictions, periods, the moon. We create rites of passage, and importantly, I do a lot of work on the healing and prevention of sexual assault. Because there's another thing that I would like to talk about tonight that happened to me that also influences the work that I do today. So let's go back in time. Now it's 1988. Except now I'm 14 and I'm standing in the playground at Nimbin Central School, and I was shocked. I was shocked at the class that we'd just had. It was a personal development class, which was basically a sex ed class, and I was taking some time to digest the lesson. Our teacher, who I liked and respected, had taught the subject of sexual abuse, what it was and why it was important to talk about it. This in 1988 was a pretty unusual class. I don't think he had any idea what was going to unfold that afternoon, but I watched as girl after girl had broken down in tears or later confided with friends about what was happening to them at home. One girl in particular talked about how she had been raped by her stepfather every single day and that he'd threatened to kill her and her mother if she ever told anyone. Other girls I could see had been deeply affected by the class and looked like they wanted to speak up, but they were just too scared. So I'm standing in this playground and I'm reeling and I'm feeling grateful and that I was safe and my family was safe, and all of a sudden, out of nowhere, like a dragonfly just landed on my shoulder and just started whispering to me. I had these memories start to occur, memories I'd never had before, sounds and smells. And I'm back in Coogee and I'm very little, and I can vividly remember a silver watch ticking really close to my head. I can remember a potted palm plant, pastel colours, and I can remember I'm wearing my favourite undies, my apricot coloured ones with the little frills on the side. I remember I'm being babysat. My uncle, my dad's brother, he told me there weren't enough beds that night, so I was going to have to share his bed. I'd woken up in the middle of the night and my heart was beating really, really fast, and I could feel everything in the room, especially him. My undies had fallen down and I'd pull them back up and then I'd go to sleep and they'd fall back down again, and then I'd wake up and they'd fallen down again. And then I think I suddenly started to realise, and all I can remember is fear. Fear climbs up my spine and into my throat, and my mind goes completely blank and I can't remember anything else. The next thing I remember, I'm in my cousin's arms and I'm screaming loudly and wanting my parents. I was 7. My first thought about this memory at 14 was maybe this wasn't real. And then I started to imagine, but what if it was real? What would that mean? And what happened after my mind goes blank? What would happen if I went home and told my parents? What if everyone knew? I imagined my father being so upset that people wouldn't be able to control him. I imagined my mother out of control, the police being involved. I imagined my uncle being banished from the family, my big, beautiful family. Everyone would be so upset. So, as lots of people do in my situation, 14-year-old Aimee started to negotiate a solution, a way out. I mean, compared to the other girls, my experience seemed almost trivial. I mean, I couldn't even remember most of it. Hardly anything even happened. I mean, why would a memory like that just pop up anyway? So I decided that it wasn't worth it, and I just pushed it down, and I decided to say nothing. So let's fast forward another 5 years, and now I'm 19, it's 1993, and I'm young, and I'm fierce, and I'm independent. And we're standing on a veranda having a big family holiday in Indonesia. And I'm with my dad and everyone. And we've been talking about big stuff that afternoon. And we're watching the sunset. And I just remember my dad leans back and he just goes, "Well, I'm just glad that hasn't happened to any of my girls." And I just looked at the floor and I felt sick. And the world just stopped and my stepmother didn't miss a beat. and she'd seen me a mile off and she just asked me point blank. So I told them what I remembered, and then I just waited to see what was about to unfold. Dad sat there a while in shock, but eventually he just got up and walked away. The conversation was over. Dad and I didn't speak about it again for a number of years. I tried talking about it, but every time I did, the message was filtered down through my entire family. It's over. That was sad. We don't need to talk about it. Let's move on, please. And in my experience, this is what we do in our culture. This is how we silence each other. And this is the point where sexual abuse gets even more insidious and complex. At 19, what did I do in that moment? Well, the only thing I knew to do, which was to walk straight into a bar and get blind drunk, obliterated, completely off my face. And then I found men that would give me attention, and then I ended up having sex with one of them. During the next few years, I did a lot of really, really dangerous things. I was very confused and I took a lot of really big risks. I'm very lucky to be alive. I think I was punishing myself for something I was deeply confused by, and I just became more and more out of control and self-destructive. What does it mean if you tell your family you've been sexually abused and then nothing really happens? So what does that mean about me? And why the fuck was I expected to turn up to all these family events where he was there and act like nothing happened? What did that mean about me? What was I worth to them? What was my innocence worth? I started to question, what the fuck is innocence anyway? By my 30s, thankfully, well, not thankfully, but a whole shit show of boundaries had already been broken as well. I was riddled with addictions, unhealthy relationships, and deep shit feelings of shame. I'd experienced more sexual abuse and was becoming aware of how trauma was popping up and entangling and kinking my ability to be truly intimate and happily connected to my family and the people I loved. So, for my 40th birthday, I got tired of waiting for people to do what I hoped they would do, and I took the situation into my own hands, and I went, fuck this shit. So I accessed a proper sexual assault counsellor, reported my uncle to the police, and then I sat down and I wrote a very long email. It was an email to every single member of my family outlining what my uncle had done, and every member of our family got that letter. My grandparents, his parents, my parents, he got it. My step-family got it, my sisters, their partners, my ex-husbands, Mexican cousins I've never met got it. It was easily, and still is, one of the most empowering things I have ever done in my life. So tonight I say, fuck being silent, fuck the patriarchy, fuck upsetting people, fuck shame, fuck secrets, fuck victim blaming, fuck sexual assault, and fuck you, Uncle John. Thank you. Thank you very much.